right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Math Puzzle Crash Course. Didn't really plan on spending time on this problem again, but I've seen quite a lot of confusion on it. There's a bunch of different Facebook pages, and honestly, I believe a lot of them are probably being set up by scammers that are posting this problem. And they're all posting the same thing, and it's like, anything. These pages have names like Life with Cats, Life with Dogs, Hot Rods and Cycles, and just about anything that would get somebody's interest. But none of these pages have anything to do with what they say. But the only thing is they're posting this problem. And I did do a video on this yesterday, went through the math. But I wanted to touch a little bit on some of the most common wrong answers. And I've seen people defend these answers and try to explain their logic, but it really doesn't make any sense. And what I want to do is try to point people in the right direction. And again, the problem is a man buys a horse for $60, sells it for $70, buys it back for 80, sells it again for $90. How much money did he make or lose? I mean, for most people, this should be pretty obvious. I mean, you can look at this and see he bought it once, sold it, bought it again, and sold it. Doesn't matter if it's the same horse. It doesn't matter at all. Some people get confused over that. I mean, if you look at this problem, one of the first things that sticks out to me is, oh, he bought it and sold it, but each time he sold it for $10 more than he paid for it. Each time. He went from 60 to 70. He went from 80 to 90. Honestly, that's the only thing that matters in this whole problem, and yet people get so confused over this. I think some people are getting lost because he spent $10 more. He spent the $80 after he sold it for 70, and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh my gosh, he's losing money," or they're coming up with something, ridiculous. But this is very straightforward math. And I'll just say right off the bat that $30 is one of the really terrible answers that I see. A lot of people are giving that answer, and I found it really puzzling that people are giving that answer. But I think what it comes down to is a lot of people are ignoring the fact the horse was bought twice and sold twice. For some reason, there's some people who think that you just look at the first purchase and the last purchase, and that's that. Now, I'll say, had he bought the horse just once at $60 and sold it once for $90, he would have made $30 because 90 minus 60 is 30. But that's not what happened here. He bought it twice, he sold it twice. And a lot of people seem fine ignoring that. I think people are getting confused, over the fact that he paid more the second time he bought the horse and all the reasoning gets lost with them on that. Once that happens, they're really confused and they're scrambling to try to figure it out. And they don't understand the fact that he paid the $80 the second time he bought it. It's already accounted for in how much he made. Instead of making the $30 he could have made had he bought it at 60, sold it at 90, he could have made 30, but he didn't because of the fact that he had to spend that extra money to buy the horse the second time. So he only made $20. He made $10 less than he could have. But that gets lost on people as well. Like I said, he paid $80 after selling it for $70, so he had to come up with another $10 from somewhere. And boy, does this ever cause a problem too. I cannot tell you how many people will read the same problem I'm reading. What does it say here? It says he buys a horse for $60. It doesn't say that all the money in the world he has is $60. No, it says he buys a horse for $60. And yet some people are getting hung up on, and thinking, well, how can he do this? Because he only has $60. He buys it for 60, sells it for 70, right? So he has $10. So how can he even go back and buy it for $80 when he's only got $10? Well, do you imagine this guy's maybe got a savings account? Maybe this guy's got a banking account. Maybe he carries a big thick wallet in his back pocket. Maybe he puts it in his front side pocket. Maybe he sews money in his mattress. Maybe he's got a piggy bank. I mean, why does all reason go out the window with some people when they imagine that this person only has $60. I mean, he could have gotten that money from anywhere. He had to come up with an extra $10. I mean, how many times do you go somewhere and somebody wants to sell you something and you think, well, they're going to sell it to me for 30, but then they end up saying they want 40. Well, what do? Do you like hopefully you have another $10 in your wallet, right? And you take care of it. It's not a big tragedy, and yet this problem confuses people. People get so confused they can't really do the math at that point. Um, And then there's the people who think that somehow because it's the same horse, you only count what you pay at the beginning and sold it at the end. And I know people think that because I've seen multiple problems like this where, I bought a cow, I bought an elephant. There's a bunch of problems out there, the same type of problem. And yet people somehow get hung up on the fact it's the same animal being sold twice, being bought twice and sold twice. It makes no difference. The only thing that matters is that there were two sales. It could have been a leopard and a chicken. It could have been three leopards. It could have been five zebras and a donkey. It doesn't matter. Is irrelevant. It could have been a watch. It could have been a car. It could have been a sandwich. The only thing that matters is he had two. There were four total transactions. Two of them were purchases, two of them were sales, and there's a buy and a sell matched together, and another buy and a sell matched together. That's all that counts. So I don't get it. I really don't. Um, okay, so um, it doesn't matter if it's the same horse. Um, and again, here's a way to illustrate such a terrible assumption like that. Oh, you only got to count the first time you buy it and the last time you sold it. Here's an example, and I admit this is a ridiculous example that probably wouldn't happen in the real world, but it illustrates the stupidity of that type of argument. I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, but if I bought a watch for $1 and I sold the watch for $1 million, and then later on, I was able to buy the watch again for $5. I bought it back from the same person. Hey, maybe they forgot how much, I sold it for. Um, I bought it back from him for $5, and then I sold the watch for $6. Well, according to the logic of the people who are only counting the first purchase and the last sale, I only made $5. And that totally ignores this $1 million in here. You can't ignore that $1 million. I made $1 million in here. But if you want to, I'm perfectly fine. Anybody like that, I will go through and do this, and then on my taxes, I'll just put down that I made $5, and I won't have to count this million in here, and that would be great. I would love that if it was true, but it's not true. So please, if you're thinking the answer was 30, I need you to understand why that's a ridiculous answer. And it has nothing to do with, well, it's because it's the same watch. No, that makes no difference whatsoever. Um, I mean, here's some of the answers. It says, he made $30 because it doesn't matter what he did in between. He bought it for 60 and sold it for 90. I mean, somebody's trying to make that argument. And someone else says he started with 60 and then with 90. That's not hard to figure. Well, yeah, I guess it's not hard to figure if you're making up your own problem, but that's not what this problem says. That doesn't relate to this problem at all. And then I don't even understand this one. Horse initial price 60, number one sold for 70, buy back at 80. Somehow he's putting the gain of $10 here. Um, he made $10 going from buying it at 60 and selling at 70. I'll agree with that. But then he's got gain $80 sold for 90, 90 from 60 to 90, total gain $30. This really needs to go back and rethink that answer. And again, I'm not putting people's names on here, but these are real answers to this problem. And not I guess not a lot of thought went into this, perhaps. Um, some other people are going to keep saying he lost money. I've seen answers like he lost $50, he lost $20, he lost $10. Um, I guess they just can't read the problem and break it down. I mean, when you look at this problem and you say he bought it for 60, sold it for 70, bought it for 80, sold it for 90, it should be really obvious that how do you sell something twice for $10 more than you paid for it and lose money? That makes no sense. I mean, just on the surface, without even doing any math, just the English language, these two sentences tell you that he's selling it for more than he paid for it. So you should just know right off the bat, without doing any math at all, that you're going to get a positive result out of this. I see $10. So a lot of people are saying you only made 10. This is probably the most common answer that I see. Made $10 in the first sale, spends 80 to buy it back, so lost $10, sales it again for 90, so he made $10 again. Okay, now I may have misread this one because maybe they're actually saying 20 because yeah, you did make 20 on the first sale and you made $10 on the second sale, so it would be a total of 20. This came out kind of it wasn't very clear. But this one here is saying he made $10 when he sold it for 70, he made 10. And a lot of people get the first part right. They still somehow think he only made $10 total. But most of the people that say that, they understand that when you bought it at 60, sold it for 70, you made 10. But then I think the fact that he paid more the second time throws him off. It says when he bought it back, he lost the 10. So see, that's what they're not really doing the math. They're just in their head, something's not right. Something's not right when you sell it for 70 and buy it back for 80. That just throws people off. So in this person's mind, they had to lose the 10. No math behind it whatsoever, just an opinion, just a feeling. And then when he comes back and says he sold it for 90, this is where he made 10. The first two transactions canceled each other out, so that was zero. All right, that really actually doesn't make any sense at all. But a lot of people that are saying that he made 10, they'll get the first part right, and then they get confused beyond that. I'm going to go through this again. A lot of this was in the same video from yesterday, but I wanted to go in a little bit more detail and reinforce this because I've seen people continue to argue the $10 answer and the $30 answer, and really not be able to back it up with any kind of real math. I mean, you've seen the responses, the same ones that I've seen, and usually the math is really weak. And they're mostly getting lost in the part when you're going from 80 to 90. But again, here you have sale number one. You went from you sold it for 70, you bought it at 60, so 70 minus 60 is $10. The second sale, $90 minus $80 is $10. 10 plus 10 is 20. I mean, how much simpler could that be? You could also look at it as you could total up all the money that they spent, which is 60 plus 80, right? They bought it once at 60, they bought it again at 80. That adds up to 140. Well, how much money did they get when they sold it each time? Well, they sold it for 70 once, and then they sold it for 90 once. 70 and 90 is 160. Guess what, kids? The difference between 160 and 140 is $20. Earnings is the same thing as profit. And profit is equal to revenue minus expenses. What does revenue mean? Revenue is the money that you're bringing in a business. Expenses is the money that goes out. Now, we're not getting into, I see a lot of people just throw out an answer, oh, he lost money because he had to feed the horse. Yeah, we get that. We get that. That's not the point of this problem. The point of the problem is, can you do the math based on the numbers that we've got? We're not going beyond that. So in this case, the expenses is the money that he used to buy the horse the two times. That's the 140. 160 minus 140 is $20. That would be his earnings or a profit, however you want to call it. Um, like I said, many people are getting confused and give answers that he lost money, etc. And nobody, again, I'll say it again, nobody knows how much money this person started with. You can assign a variable X to the amount of money they had to start with because we have no idea. We have no idea. I've seen people try to explain this problem and say, well, imagine he had $200, and then they'll go through the math and explain it and go, see, then you end up with $220. And the other person starts to argue and they'll say, where does it ever say they had $200? And they're totally missing the point of the exercise. Nobody knows if he had $200. Nobody knows if he had 1,000, 500, 600, 800, $1 million. Maybe he had $0 and he borrowed it all for free without paying any interest. It doesn't matter. So here, I assign a variable x to the amount of money they had to start with because I have no idea. And you go through the math. X minus 60 plus 70 minus 80 plus 90 equals x plus 20. What does that tell you? It says no matter how much money they started with, they're going to get X plus 20. They're going to have $20 more than what they started with. So very simple. And like, I'm going to throw this example out, and I know somebody's going to comment and say, where does it say that he only had $500 to start with? Where does it say that he had $1,000 to start with? I'm making those numbers up. But somehow people think just because I'm making up that starting amount, somehow that affects the outcome of the problem. No, you want to sit, if you do you know how to do an Excel spreadsheet? I'll tell you what, you sit there for a whole day and you do an Excel spreadsheet and just keep duplicating this over and over and over until you finally convince yourself that no matter what this number is, you're going to get $20 more. You start with $500. You buy the horse for 60. 500 minus 60, $440. You sell the horse for 70. No, $440 plus 70 is $510. You buy the horse again for 80. So 510 minus 80 is $430. You sell the horse for 90. 430 plus 90 is 520. Guess what? 520 is $20 more than the 500 you started with. You could do the same thing with $1,000 here. I'm not going to go through each one of these steps. You end up with $1,020. If I had $1 million at the starting number, you would have $1,000,020 here. So the point, I'm going to say it again, it doesn't matter how much money they started with. You don't know how much he has in his wallet, in the bank, sewn in his mattress, in his piggy bank. It's irrelevant. He obviously had enough money to go out and spend $140 total because he bought it once at 60, he bought it again at 80, so somehow he had at least $140 to do that. That's all he needed to make both of those purchases. And yet people are so confused over this. Um, so I hope this has cleared it up for at least some people. I know for some there probably won't be any clearing this up at all, based on some of the things I've seen. But this is very, very simple mathematics. And sometimes it pays somebody just to take a step back. It's not fun to be wrong. It's not fun to be incorrect. But, rather than keep arguing a wrong answer, take a step back and go, okay, what's this guy saying? Does it make any sense? Um, and go from there. But I hope this video has been helpful to some. And again, I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video. Have a great day.